Hello, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to change the front sprocket on a CT110 with a high-low gearbox or sub-transmission. It's a little bit more involved than on a standard CT110. Let's get straight into it and I'll show you how it's done. And I'll also show you these vintage Hondas have JIS screws. How can you tell if it's a JIS screw? I'll show you that as well. I'll remove this last part of the chain cover so that we can see better, and then we'll start by removing the 4 screws from the cover of the sub-transmission. That's the screws removed. The screws on the case and on the sub-transmission, I think there are 4 different lengths. It's easy to get them mixed up, so as you remove the screws, put them in an order to help you remember where they go when refitting them. So we simply pull the end of the cover off. In this case the bearing has come out. This bearing simply fits in there. First thing we remove, you can see there is a thrust washer, and the best thing to do is put everything back in the case and it will help you remember. There's another thrust washer in the idler gear. This has a pin on the bottom of the selector lever, so you may need to move that to get this. I'll try and do it with my hands out of the way so that you can see. Out it comes, and once again replace in the cover. Make it easier to remember where the parts go. Now we need to remove the snap ring or circlip, and then we can pull out the high gear. We have 2 different types of circlip pliers. There's an internal and external. This is an external circlip, and the difference of the pliers is to open the arms on this one you must pull this apart. So if you try and use this on an external circlip, it makes it more difficult. This makes it much more easy. All you need to do is press the 2 outside legs together and the arms will come apart. Let's see if I can do this so you can see. Squeeze, off it comes easily, and once again replacing in the cover. Finally remove the high gear. And this washer, this thrust washer has got lugs on it to fit onto a spline. So once again putting it into the cover the way it comes off to help us remember when we refit it. Now all we need to do, remove the JIS screws and take the cover off. But how can we tell if it's a JIS screw? The way we can see if it's a JIS is the head of the bolt. If you can see on this screw, it will have a small dot mark or center punch mark, and that is the sign of a JIS or Japanese industry standard fastener. So using the impact driver with the JIS bit, I've cracked all the screws, and now it's just a matter of removing the screws. I've already taken off the gear shift lever. This is part of the chain guard, the chain cover. You can leave it in place or take it off, it's up to you. And you can either drain the oil, or what I've chosen to do is lean this bike over onto one side before I pull the cover off. So I decided to remove the chain guard anyway, just 2 screws, just to make it a little bit easier to see. I've got the 2 screws in the centre there, just the last 2 to remove. And now it should pull off. It is on dowels. And of course it should pull off. It is tempting to put a screwdriver between the faces, but try to resist that temptation. Hope I can do this. I'm trying to do this without my arm getting in the way. The sprocket simply pulls off, but it is important to try and keep any dirt from inside there. I'm not sure, well, it's not an easy job to keep the dirt out. Here's my new sprocket. I've oiled it up, put some oil on so that hopefully the seal will be okay. This engine is going to be dismantled soon. But if this was your engine, make sure that's perfectly clean, new gasket. Just a matter of refitting the screws, and away we go again. And now to replace the parts of the sub-transmission. First of all, the high gear with the spline. This can be a little bit fiddly. Trying to keep my hands out of the way. And it slides. And the thrust washer. And the snap ring or external circlip. Just make sure that it is seated. And now this has a pin at the bottom. On the selector fork, the pin fits in the fork on the lever at the bottom. So as we're feeding this onto the spline and also into there, make sure that the fork is engaged with the pin. And in it goes. Now there's a thrust washer that fits on the end there. So what we need to do, this pin locates into the housing there. So this is the idler gear. As we thread it in, we need to get the pin into the hole on the housing. There it goes. And now finally there's a thrust washer that fits on the end there. And now with the bearing in the cover, the thrust washer in place, ensure the gasket surface is clean, we can refit the cover onto the dowel. Four screws. And that's the job complete. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.